Hey everyone, welcome back to Poker Fluency. Today we're going to jump into part 2 of our World Series of Poker $1,500 final table review using the Octopi Poker Vault. In the first session we covered the early dynamics with 6 players and more, and now we're going to finish things off by looking at how the table developed, some of the biggest ICM spots, and where a few players made some key mistakes that really shifted the outcomes. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I'd recommend going back and watching that first so that this breakdown makes a bit more sense. And as always, if you spot something interesting or have a question, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on how this final table played out. So let's dive in and take a look at some of the hands. So the first thing that we saw, or the last thing that we saw rather, was this hand where we get a big pot develops between, we get the guy who had all the chips kind of wins or loses a big one, loses a lot of his stack here after just kind of blasting off. And, we get a 6 of hearts river, he blasts off as a bluff, blush gets it in, and, we just end up with a situation where chip lead changes hands, right? So with the chip lead changing hands, obviously that's altering the context for a lot of the stacks here, but we still have a couple of short stacks. We still have a couple of spots where, players are going to be under some pressure. So this same player opens to 2.4. Ishan folds the button here. I'm curious whether we don't have a pre-flop sim for this. I think that ace-2 suited might be pretty reasonable hand to 3-bet there, but probably okay to fold as well. Defend might be a little bit wide against 2.4 here from 8 points, from 17 with 8-7 off. Check bet fold, nice and easy. Let's go until we find a hand where it's a bit more ambiguity. Okay, easy min raise. This one we've got, so we've got pocket queens, ace queen, and we've got pocket sixes up here. So obviously pretty trivial open from chip leader there. And then we get a defend. This one's interesting. How would you expect this flop to play out in terms of each player's kind of approach with the hands that they have here?
I mean, it probably should just be maybe a medium-sized bet, small to medium from the cutoff, and then maybe big blind can call one street, but probably just has to be folding because of the 14 and 16 big blind stacks. But I imagine, I don't know. I don't know how these guys are playing, but I'd imagine there'd be some sort of leveling wars going on if you're in a pop someone who just took half of your stack as well.
Yeah, I think that there are going to be to some degree. I mean, we can never really speculate too accurately about, to what extent those things are going to be relevant because some players are going to be ignoring that. Some players are going to be paying close attention. I think that the thing to keep in mind about a lot of these post-flop situations, ICM wise, obviously we don't have a sim for this exactly, but the thing about post-flop ICM is that there's a lot of situations where even though the general dynamic will maybe shift a bit in favor of more aggression from one player or a little bit less aggression from one player, the thresholds of hands that call or fold and things like that don't change as much as you might expect because post-flop play is kind of already baked into our understanding of what we do pre-flop, right? And so if pocket sixes was in a position where it was going to have to just check fold on boards like this, it probably wouldn't defend pre in the first place. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would expect that sixes probably doesn't fold here just because it's rare to see a pair fold unless the bet is pretty big. If we look at the risk premiums here, big blind versus cutoff, he's at 20.7%. So that is a big risk premium. And I certainly would expect that if the bet size is 3.5, 4, something like that, if it's a reasonably large bet, I would not be at all be surprised to see sixes fold. But let's say he just comes with 2 big blinds here. Kind of tough to start folding a pair there after we defend it pre. I do think that the thing that's noteworthy as well is that when you've got somebody who has a big risk premium pre-flop that defends, you always have to take into account that the range that the cutoff is up against here is a tighter range than normal, and the cutoff has a wider range than normal. So that kind of forces the cutoff to sort of compensate a little bit by actually being a bit less aggressive here, given that the range that they're up against is somewhat tight. So it goes check, he bets 4. Now I would expect to see a fold. This I think is definitely too loose, right? Against that larger bet, with that 21% risk premium, with sixes, no club, I do think this should be a fold here. But against a smaller bet, I would have said that this would probably continue. And to be honest, in chip EV, this probably folds to that size anyway, right? Like in chip EV, here against the big size, a hand with no club, like we're blocking a couple of bluffs, like, yeah, this hand probably folds. Check, big bet again, and a call again. Wow, this guy really just hates folding. Check, bet. This is really weird. Like, this should just be a jam. Like, there's no reason to have a non-all-in size here. People do this a lot. It's like they just feel like they can't get called if they shove, so they just go. They like leave him some behind to leave him like a bit of room to bluff catch here, and they do it like he's only doing this with value. Like if he has a bluff here, he's just gonna jam. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna like have a bluff here and say to yourself, well, I want to leave this guy 13 big blinds if he calls, or 12 big blinds or whatever it is. Like if you have a bluff, you're just going to rip because it's basically pot, right? So
yeah, you just want to make it look as meaty as possible.
Yeah, I don't like this size here. But he gets the call from sixes, which is like, I think this guy's just like imploding at this point. Like he had like a monster chip lead, and then he just fired it off for 3 streets, and now he's just calling down against the chip leader with a hand that probably should just fold flop. So yeah, kind of a wild spot. Pretty reasonable line from the chip leader here, although I think there's a pretty robust argument for checking the turn, just because you still have plenty of equity against a lot of the like draws that might check call the flop.
And I think I think betting the turn becomes infinitely worse when you're getting stationed by third pair, because it's probably it's probably where you're trying to get to fold.
It does. It's kind of weird though. There's a dynamic when people are under folding on the earlier streets. A lot of whether or not it hurts us or helps us comes down to what the board texture is and what they're going to do on the subsequent street. So for example, like if the big blind here is just going to like station down on so many runouts, like if he's just going to call basically all his one pair on the turn, then it becomes kind of a disaster to barrel the turn with this hand. But if we think that, and then this will happen sometimes, if we think that he's in this kind of mood where like he's going to call one more, but then he's going to sort of think about like, if we bet the river, then he's going to just kind of assume we have it, and now he's going to fold a lot, then having him underfold the turn becomes really powerful, because he's putting so much money in and then he's overfolding the river. You know what I mean? Like our river bluffs are just going to basically print, right? So you always have to kind of weigh those two things up. And this is why, I've sort of talked a bit in past about like not wanting to narrow their range too much. Like if you do think you're getting an underfold, and then they're going to subsequently arrive at the river with hands that are just going to like really struggle to defend, that's quite a good thing. So you want them to put in the most money passively while still having probably too wide of a range. You know what I mean? And then, if you think this guy's calling sixes here, on this particular board texture, there's not going to be that many bad rivers for sixes. So it may be that, if he calls with sixes, if he calls with like a 7 here and stuff like that, there's not going to be enough bad rivers that can really can force him to fold. But there's going to be certain other board textures where if they do call the turn with a hand like sixes that might be really vulnerable, like say if the turn was like a jack or something, or if the turn was maybe a club, something like that. Like there's just a lot of situations where hypothetically he can really get heavily punished for calling sixes. But on this board, I mean, there might be enough good rivers for him that he doesn't get that punished for it. But obviously this one is one where ace queen improves. Realistically, ace queen should have shoved here, and this guy should have busted the tournament by calling down here. But ace queen did get the payoff. So massive change in the chip stacks after this one. And now we have this kind of insane situation where we've got 5 players. We've got one with 150 big blinds, one like 3 short stacks, and then Ishan in the middle, who has probably like an incredibly high risk premium on the next hand. Let's see how high his premium is. Yeah, wow, look at this. Ishan in the big blind, his risk premium against chip leader is 24.7% here. This is like basically the highest I've ever seen at a regular non-satellite final table. And
Yeah.
then chip leader against everybody else pretty much just gets to play chip EV. Like even against Ishan, he has a 1.8% risk premium. Like he just doesn't have any reason to really care about, putting chips in because there are so many great spots for him here. Like it honestly wouldn't shock me if his strategy in this spot has a bunch of jams because there's only one player behind who can actually call him like who has a stack that can hurt him at all, really. And that player has such a high risk premium that if Jackson just jams with like a random ace here, Ishan probably has to call like queens plus. Like he probably has to fold ace king to a jam here. And these other players, like they're folding a lot too. So I don't think king jack needs to jam necessarily, but there's a lot of hands like ace hands, low pocket pairs. I think Jackson can just rip here with tons of hands and just expect to get crazy numbers of folds,
What would your adjustment be as the big stack if you feel like these shorter stacks aren't adjusting due to the risk premium on their head?
Like if they're not being tight enough?
Yeah, if they're not being tight enough, like if you find some really good spots where you should be jamming essentially deck because everyone has 20 big blind effective stacks, but you have noticed that the players aren't going to be folding tight enough. What would
I think what happens there is you just shift away from jamming and you just min raise instead, right? Because and the other thing to note is that there isn't really ever going to be a spot where you're actually jamming everything because the top of your range is always going to want to not jam. And therefore you're always going to have like a min raise range that includes your inducing hands and therefore is also going to include some bluffs, right? So one way or another, like you're basically always going to have a min raise range and a jam range. And if we expect people to underfold to the jam, then I think that it's possible there are some hands that would benefit from still jamming, like maybe your ace kings and stuff, because they don't realize, like your offsuit ace king, ace queen off, like the stuff that doesn't play post flop that well might benefit from jamming still. Maybe some of your pocket pairs might benefit from jamming still if like, maybe eights is not supposed to get a call from sevens, but now it does, like maybe that benefits from jamming. But largely, I think if the less confidence we have in how they're going to play against the jam, the more we can just shift away from using the jam at all and just only really do it with hands that are like really secure in the knowledge that they're good jams. And it's not a disaster at all to just have no jams at all here, because even if you play no jams, you still get to exert so much pressure on Ishan with just a min raise. The variance involved in jamming is not it's not really a big deal to avoid that. I don't think you're really going to lose much from not having a jam here. The one thing to note though is that it's possible that they can be calling too wide against the jam, but it's also possible that they can be jamming a bit too wide against the min raise, in which case they're making mistakes in both lines. You know what I mean? So if they're making mistakes against against the min raise and against the jam, we have to try to weigh up like how big of a mistake do we think they're making, because both of those lines are not getting as much fold equity as they should. And sometimes if that's the case, we just end up actually folding a bit more. Like we don't have as much opportunity to apply leverage as we should do. So there are going to be some instances where we just have to take some of the stuff that we normally might raise because everyone's going to fold a lot and we just fold it instead. But generally speaking, the first adjustment would be if they're not playing tight enough against the shove, like we just stop shoving and min raise everything. And then if they are also making mistakes by maybe shoving too wide against the min raise, maybe we just start to tighten up a little bit. I think that's generally the way to go.
Nice.
King Jack is going to min raise. King Jack suited calls off, doubles up the ace 10. It seems fine. Shundown has queens. Ace Jack not jamming there is wild. Like, I mean, I know she's the other short stack, but like, it's so tight to fold Ace Jack there. And this guy ends up winning the event. So this like tilts me no end when people just like knit their way to a bracelet somehow. And there's me with 2 second places, like trying to play good, So it's pretty tilting to see this guy end
Yeah.
up winning this event. But he does make the fold with the ace jack. Ishan folds, chip leader calls, which is obviously very reasonable. Check, two big blinds, call seems okay. I might not mind seeing a check raise or even a check shove here from king queen. But yeah, check fold is fine on the turn. Seems good. This is way too wide. This is egregiously wide when you have chip leader to your left here. Like Ishan's risk premium against chip leader is 21%. He cannot raise 9-8 off here. This is way too wide. Like he probably, like 9-8 suited is close for him here. Like he's in so many bad spots here. He needs to have some high card value, some blocker power.
Do we
Something
like
like
opening wider if we think that the small blind isn't going to be exerting enough pressure on us, or is just the risk of
I think it
bringing
depends on whether we think that, like, there's different ways for him to not exert enough pressure, right? He could be not 3-betting enough, but he also could be, instead of 3-betting a lot, he's going to flat more, in which case that still kind of sucks, because we still have to try to play post against the chip leader. So I mean, you could maybe make an argument for going a little bit wider than, like a super tight range. Instead of like going 20% here, you might go like 25% of hands. But there's just no way 9-8 off is an open here.
9-8 super egregious,
This is probably a fold for Shundan. Button does cover her, I think, with one stack shorter than her. This type of stuff, like I think you would rather have like an offsuit king or a queen here. Like you'd rather have like king 5 off or something, because you want to be able to have some flops where you flop really well. What you don't want is these types of hands where you flop a lot of like middle pair or bottom pair, and in order to kind of profit, you have to play this fairly aggressively. Yeah, range bet for Ishan seems fine. Okay, so we get shove, blind on blind seems good. Ace 10 actually does call off and win. So now Shundan is really short. Ishan's risk premium is going to continue to be extremely insane here. He's now at 22% still against chip leader. He cannot open that hand. This actually probably can be an open for Jackson here. Or even like there's quite a lot of hands. I think a lot of suited hands can just shove here. I think any offsuit hand with like a Broadway card can probably min raise, because the blinds just have to fold so much to him, like 20%, 20%. The short stack here, obviously she can get it in fairly wide, but she just, like, losing 6 big blinds just means literally nothing to him at this point, basically. So I would think a lot of hands that have any kind of vague blocker to anything can probably open here. But he does fold. We didn't see what hand she had, but she probably has to get it in pretty wide on the button there.
I think
Jack 7 suited limping is fine. I think ace deuce off is probably a jam versus this limp here, or at least a raise. He does check though. Check, 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 bet, and fold. Okay, so he did find a bet there with the jack on the river, but we're all good. Okay, ace deuce opening seems fine. King queen getting it in, also fine. Ace deuce is going to call off, and king queen makes a flush. So Shundan doubles up. Okay, 7-5 suited. Yeah. Definitely have to be pretty tight against chip leader here with this high of a risk premium, but pretty tough to just fold this. Like, this is just still a pretty good hand to limp. This is a good raise, very reasonable to raise a lot of these weakest offsuit hands. And that's, yeah. I mean, you kind of, like, you have to call something here. Like, you can't just, like, limp fold everything, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to play pure limp, then, you certainly can have some hands that limp call. Like, you can't just play limp call. You can't just, like, limp, I don't know, 50% of hands here and then just fold stuff like this that plays really well post. It's kind of, like I said before, pre-flop strategies are kind of, post-flop is baked into pre-flop, in that, like, the reason we limp 7-5 suited here is because we don't have to fold if we get raised. If we start by presuming that we're going to fold to the raise, we shouldn't limp in the first place, because that raise is just going to come through so frequently when that happens,
absolutely.
So, okay, jack 8. This is terrible. Like, this is way too wide from the cutoff here. This queen six is probably a 3-bet here. Like this is one of these spots that chip leader can just go really hard at the cutoff here. Obviously, especially if he knows that he's opening jack eight offsuit. But yeah, any suited queen, suited king, a lot of these hands are going to want a 3-bet in these types of situations where you just have massive ICM pressure that you can apply. You can even shove, honestly. Like I imagine shoving is probably profitable here with queen six of spades. Although it's debatable given that this guy may be calling off way too wide, but I suppose we'll see. Ace king suited, okay. That could be an okay 3-bet for Ishan here, but I think probably he wants to just stick with blockers. So that's probably okay. Chip leader folding king 7 is fine. Queen 9. I think you can probably defend this. This is close though.
Yeah.
You do have him covered, which helps a little bit. He's probably, I mean, we know from the hand histories that he's almost certainly wider than what he's supposed to be here. But even if you don't know that he's wider, yeah, I think you can possibly call queen 9 there. It's going to be close though. Okay, bunch of folds. Ace queen. I would like to see a raise here instead of a limp. I think that with almost equal stacks here, you're going to have some kind of raise in your strategy, because you benefit from just applying a little bit of pressure. Like they both have kind of a pretty high risk premium against each other. It's like 11%, 12% either way. So I would probably raise a lot of these strong offsuit hands like ace queen off. King jack off is a good check back though. He does check, that's fine. Okay, check. Bet 1, call, check. Bet 3.3, fold. Yeah, I mean, it's really tight to fold ace queen there, or to just like check pre, check call flop, check fold turn. I kind of understand it because you have a club and a heart and it's 2 spades and 2 diamonds on board. But this is part of the reason why we don't limp and then limp call flop. It's because we just get blown off so much equity here. So a little bit awkward for that guy there. This is obviously reasonable. Ishan's going to defend, seems fine. This, I would like to see a check raise here just because,
Great hand.
again, like you have to check raise something, and you still, like, especially against a super wide range like this, that's probably range betting. This is probably like basically a button range, if not wider than that. And he's probably range betting this flop. So your check raise just gets through a lot. Like you can just check raise to 3.5 here or something. Like that's like a 1/3 pot check raise. Basically, it's going to get through a lot. And we have a straight draw plus a backdoor. But when we check call, we're just so vulnerable. And this just happens so often. Like he has a hand that normally would never really barrel, but he can just blast here with a bunch of hands that just are unblockers. And, we just have to fold. So yeah, I would have preferred to see a check raise there. Always good to remember that even against the chip leader, like you do have to have, you just have to have check raise bluffs. Like you can't just never bluff, King queen opens, jack 3 calls, check. I think check back this flop is pretty good. Honestly, you can probably play a range check here on this flop, given how much equity chip leader has. Chip leader's probably supposed to donk this flop quite a lot. And I also think you should raise bigger pre. Like I think even from 25, like you should probably 2.3x or 2.5x or something here when chip leader's in the big blind. Goes check. King turn. Now chip leader has to kind of give up a little bit. Oh, he has to bet. Like you can't just check back a king there. Like, yeah, now he bets like half pot on the river, gets called by a jack. So that's, yeah, he just wins a small one. Okay, opens. Yeah, I mean, flatting 9-8 suited, I guess I kind of understand it, but this is definitely too wide. Because this can just happen. Chip leader just rips it. He has to fold. We'll just kind of try to speed through a little bit quicker so we can make sure we get to the end of it during this. Okay, another easy raise. Yeah, this is a terrible defend. This is way too wide with a 9 big blind stack there. Okay, shove from king 9. I kind of would like to see, this is a good spot to just put in like 7 or put in 6 or something, just like never fold to a reshove, but fold if it goes multi-way, because just laddering up here at any kind of frequency is so valuable. So yeah, like when this happens, this exact thing, like he's never supposed to reshove here. Like he's always supposed to just play call or fold. I would be shocked if there's any reshoving in an optimal strategy here. So when you put in 6 and he like reshoves, and then some small frequency, like one of these guys just wakes up with it, like they just wake up with top of range, and then this guy can bust to Ishan, or this guy can lose most of his chips against Davenport. It's just so valuable for us just to keep like 3 big blinds behind. So I would like to see that here.
Done
But
it before, laddered twice because
yeah,
of
yeah. I mean, there's some crazy spots that come from it, but it's valuable to ladder there. It's really valuable. She does get the double up though. Queen Jack. So he comes with a limp here. This is even crazier. And then Ishan raises, and he just limp folds. Okay. I guess this is how you win bracelets. Just yeah. I mean, we don't even have to talk about that one. Limping here is not good. This is pretty good. This is even maybe a little bit big, I think, for this spot. I don't think you need to go 3.1. I think you can go like 2.8 or something, because you still get jammed on by a bunch of worse pairs. To fold 10-8 seems pretty good as well.
Can we just open jam 7s? Or
I don't think we have any reason to, because 6s doesn't call, right? Like she's under enough pressure there that 6s, 5s, 4s, 3s, deuces, they don't call off. But when you raise, they shove. And that's what you want, right? You always have to look at it through the lens of like what the hands that you're dominating are actually doing. King Queen is going to open. Ace 7 actually defends. Check, fold, okay, seems fine. King Jack opens, pocket jacks jams. Good fold from Ishan. Stacks are really short except for chip leader now. Ace deuce is going to open. Stacks are kind of evening out a little bit as well, so you know, the risk, everybody has like a huge risk premium against chip leader, but the risk premiums against each other are not as high, which is interesting. Because anytime you win,
drops.
What's that? Say that again.
When the stacks start to even out, the risk premium drops.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's also a product of, I think we sort of talked about this before, that each of these stacks, when they take chips from one of the other short stacks, they increase their own EV by basically turning that player into a short stack, right? So like if Shundan wins chips from Jackson here, it doesn't mean much. But if she doubles through stats, then he has 1 big blind behind, and he's like almost guaranteed to bust next. So it's just a really big improvement in her EV. And the same goes for like if Davenport doubles through Ishan, Ishan has 5 bigs left, and turning somebody else into a short stack is really valuable, basically. So that kind of lowers the effective risk premiums for all of these players against each other. Davenport's going to open. Yeah, 3-bet to 7 seems good here. This might even be a little big. You could probably go 6 there, but it's fine. Okay. Yeah,
the Jack 10 offsuit open seems like
that's too loose. Yeah, but I mean, if we commented on every time Davenport was too loose, we'd waste half this session. So. It's he's too wide in every spot. We just assume that from now on. This is a good shove. I think a lot of these suited hands will want to shove here because the call off ranges are so tight. 2 good folds. I like the shove there. King Jack opens. This, I think, I'm surprised he didn't 3-bet King 5 suited here. Like any suited king can 3-bet quite comfortably in this spot, because look at how high that premium is, 21.5%. I think we can 3-bet a lot of hands here. You could even shove, honestly. Ace 9 defends. I would rather see Ace 9 just rip here, honestly, because Ishan probably does have to fold some better hands. Like Ishan probably has to fold Ace 10 and Ace Jack if we shove here. So it's
there's not really any flop that you see where you're stoked about either. Like an ace comes, often going to be dominated.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I mean, this is close to not even being a chip EV call on this flop. Like we're just kind of speculating at this point. Like it's a very small bet, but it's not a great flop to be peeling Ace 9. We do bake the ace, check call. I don't really know what's Ishan's sizing on that turn. It's kind of a weird turn size. Like it's sort of a turn size that it kind of reflects, or it sort of is more appropriate if he was occasionally going to be value betting a queen here, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that. I think I would just prefer betting like 5 bigs. Yeah, just like 5 bigs here. And now, yeah, I mean, I don't understand giving up there. Like you get like a Dream River, which completes Jack 10. You have a blocker to Jack 10. You have a blocker to like King, Queen, Queen, Jack, like like a lot of the hands that might actually bluff catch you on this river, you block, and then we just give up. Like, I don't really like that from Ishan there. Don't really love it at all. Open, fold, fold. Ishan just jams. Ooh, King, Queen suited call off is kind of iffy there because I don't think we're doing great against Ishan's shoving range. With the premiums being as high as they are, I feel like he probably doesn't have a ton of worse broadways. Like, we're not really dominating anything. We're just kind of flipping against a bunch of stuff. So I don't
like just an open jam.
No, I think it's a raise and then like call either of the short stacks, but fold if Davenport or Ishan gets it in. And it's not because of the risk premium, because there's very limited risk premium or pretty much no risk premium for the hijack here. It's just because the actual jamming ranges are quite tight from these two players. You know, when they're jamming into you, I don't think our equity is enough against those players, even if this were a chip EV spot, like just looking at the ranges that they have. So he does call and he just binks a queen and Ishan busts. So we're now at four-handed. So pay jump for everybody else. Davenport, this doesn't make any sense either. Like, now he folds an ace on the button. Like, he's been too wide in every other spot, and now he's folding an ace. So I assumed that maybe he's just taking into account, oh, you know what? There's no small blind. That's probably why. Yeah, I mean, the fact that there's no small blind, honestly, he should be even wider. He's just playing heads up in position against Jackson here. So he can raise an ace here, I think. He probably should, but he doesn't. Shundan gets aces. Chip leader just jams. She calls, and she doubles up. Then we get Shundan jams on starts. It's an easy fold there. Jackson opening. This is one that can potentially jam. Offsuit hand, bunch of risk premium on everybody behind. Seems like it could possibly open jam, but we do prefer having suited hands there. That's a reasonable fold. Starts gets it in. Seems okay. Okay. Ace 8 suited. This is, raise seems fine here. We're occasionally getting jammed on by worse. I think that's okay. Jack 9 suited is going to open. Probably okay in this spot, considering starts is in the big blind. Okay, Ace King shoves. That's fine. Ace King shoves. And yeah, I mean, if you know how this guy's been playing, King 9 might not be a call off here, but it seems kind of crazy to think about folding it blind on blind. So I don't think we really can. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty iffy.
You've seen him only show up with Ace King or Ace Queen.
Yeah, he just like hasn't gotten it in light ever at this final table. So if you're paying close attention, like you can maybe justify a fold there. This is really weird. I kind of get it on some level because you can be really wide in the small blind here as the chip leader. I just don't know if we can be this wide, especially given that he's probably opening a bit tighter than what he's supposed to here. He may just be deciding that he's just going to like fuck with him. Like he's just going to flat and just be super sticky and just take advantage of the fact that this guy clearly has, first of all, he has a super high risk premium, but he obviously clearly doesn't want to bust. And he does check back. Now we can just bomb. Like we can just bomb this turn here. How do you check? Okay. So I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
I think small blind, yeah.
Yeah, like it doesn't make sense to flat this pre and then not just bomb as soon as he checks back the flop. Like if you're going to flat this pre, you have to just just close your eyes and bomb the turn here, especially after you flop a gut shot. It goes check, check, check again, and just fold. So like, yeah, that seems really weird to flat there and then not do any bluffing.
I don't think he ever has a jack.
Egregiously wide, shoving 8 bigs with Queen 8 suited. I know it doesn't seem super egregious, but when you're first to act here, even though you're in the big blind next hand, you have a ton of incentive to try to create a spot where the chip leader can bust one of these two. But there's so much benefit to letting that happen here. And you can also just like put in 5 bigs and let it happen from there. So that's interesting. This is a bit weird. I kind of get it because the short stack's in the big blind, but he's so far behind everybody that I don't even really think he's going to fold that much here. He does call 10-7. Check. check, bet, call, shove, call. Okay, and he busts. So I don't really hate his line here, honestly. I think 10-7 is probably close pre, but I think bet, turn, shove, river seems fine here. And then queen six, if you're going to open queen six, then this is a pretty reasonable line to take here. So yeah, seems okay. And now we're down to 3. So starts is going to fold the button there. So Jackson really, like, it's just such an overwhelming favorite to win this. It's kind of crazy that he didn't. He does make it 3 here. That's good. Shundan shoves. I think that's an okay shove. Yeah, I think that's probably fine, actually. Ace 3 off. She's the shortest of the 3. Yeah, I think that's probably okay. And she does suck out. So now we have, big stack, middle stack, short stack, and the premium for, for Shundan versus chip leader is only 15% now. So it's nowhere near as unbalanced of a spot as we saw before because there's no significant short stack. Even though Jackson out chips both of them together, we've sort of got a pretty natural progression of stack sizes. And the major pressure dynamic here is Jackson being able to exert a lot of pressure on Shundan. And even Shundan having even Stats has a pretty decent risk premium against Jackson here, 8%. So Jackson still has a lot of ability to apply pressure. He opens 9-8. He bets big, check fold. That's good. Jackson seems like he knows what he's doing so far. He seems like he's, doing things right. Stats does open jam ace 10 off for like 25 bigs, which is a little bit weird. I would have rather just seen raise call off, but that's a really huge open. Not really sure what's going on with that. I think it's not a disaster, but you can just kind of keep it to a normal size pretty easily. Okay. Yeah. So I think we're just going to see a lot of opening from Jackson here, a lot of folding from Starts. Shundan, I imagine, is probably going to be a bit more active. So King 7, this is kind of an ambitious 3-bet, but I don't hate it against a player like Starts. And he does just fold King 10 suited. Like, he just hasn't flatted a 3-bet at all this final table. 8 suited.
If you're watching any of the stream and you've got intel from friends or whatever.
Yeah, this is important. Like, if anybody has intel about Stats here, if Jackson or anybody else has somebody watching the stream, by this point, they've seen how much folding he's doing. And so they're going to know that he's been crazy tight the whole time. This is not even actually a great shove. It's funny. It's one of the few shoves that he's made so far. But in fact, King Jack off kind of benefits a bit more from just peeling here because you can't really get King Queen plus to fold when you jam, but you also can't really get anything worse to call. So I don't love the shove, but at least it's some aggression from Stats here, which is not a terrible development. Limp here is good. Wouldn't mind seeing Jackson raise. Check, bet, call, check, bet, fold. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, Jackson's hand is a very reasonable value bet on this turn, but Stats is so tight that I don't even know if you can actually get any value anymore. You know what I mean? Like, against a player that's going to just auto fold a 6 here.
You're in so much shit.
Yeah, like, you just can't, like, it's almost turning it into a bluff when it's so unlikely that if he doesn't call with a 6 here, I mean, maybe he calls with like 4x of diamonds, I guess, but you just don't get anywhere near the value you're supposed to get. So against a tighter player like this, I think we just have to be much more, we can certainly fire a ton of bluffs on this turn, but we have to be a lot more strict with how we value bet. So like only like a really good 9, I think, or, Jack or something, I think would be a value bet range for this turn. He folds Queen 6 on the button. He's going with a 4x. He went with 4.5 before. He's kind of mixing it up a little bit, but I think that's, he could raise to 3.5, 4, 4.5. Like, there's a few different options. Doesn't really matter a ton. Min raise is fine there. Jack 10 suited just folds. Like, again, crazy tight. Don't really know what he's doing. Ace 3, this is a pretty reasonable 3-bet. And I think this is good to recognize that he doesn't have to go as big as he normally would in the big blind here, because the risk premium on Shundan is high enough at, like 17.6% here. She is under tons of pressure even against this size, and going to like 8 or 8.5 wouldn't even really be necessary here for the big blind. So I like this size. I think that's pretty good. Queen Jack. Okay, so he does jam the button here. Yeah, see, this is another one, which is like, not even sure this is good. Like it's unlikely to be terrible, but I might prefer just min raising this hand. We kind of want to have a bit better blockers to shove here. 6 deuce. He actually folds the button there. That's kind of interesting. I would prefer to see Shundan shove here, I think, just because I do feel like this guy's going to fold better kings. And yeah, he does jam pocket fours, and now we just fold. I think that's fine. King 4, good fold. 5 deuce, he just folds. Okay. Queen 5, he folds. Yeah, now he's going 3x again. I guess he's adapting his sizing based on how many chips she has in the big blind, which seems okay, but really there's so much pressure on her that he doesn't really even need to do this. Like he can just go 3x or 3.2 or something with at any stack size here. So I don't think it's super important. Oops, didn't mean to click forward on that one. Let's go back. So here he folds 6-5 there, queen 5 limps, then 7-5 checks. I would probably, with a high card offsuit hand like this, I would probably rather just rip. Like I think these hands, they flop really poorly, but this hand is not quite weak enough that you want to just like limp fold it. Like something like Jack 4 or whatever, I might just limp fold it. But I think a lot of your Queen X like this, you probably can shove, especially against the player that's almost guaranteed to be overfolding. Yep. Check, 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 bet, fold. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would have, again, if you're paying attention to how this guy plays, I would have liked to see a bet somewhere here just because he's going to fold so much. Shundan folds 6-5. That's a good fold from 25 bigs there. He does shove king 6 suited. It's a pretty reasonable shove. Jackson's now opening 2.5. He's really mixing it up. Good fold with the 8-4. Now he has king 10 suited and he just jams. I think that's fine too. Starts is going to call with 8s and double up. So he now has the middle stack and Shundan is the shorter stack. She folds queen 3. Okay. Chip leader just takes down another one. King 5 off on button. Yeah, see, now he's making it 4x again. Like this is definitely weird. Yeah, like I guess he's just, I don't know, he's randomizing or what, but like it's the same essential thing. Like you can just raise to 3.5 or whatever here. You're exerting a lot of pressure. I actually think though that a hand like this kind of prefers to just shove. Because it's when we raise, it's not like we really get shoved on by worse that much. And it's not like our hand really plays that well post. So I would prefer to just rip, I think, king queen off there. Ace 3 starts, wins 1. Ace 5, so he's going to limp again. Yeah, this is a good raise. I think a lot of the bottom of your range you can raise here, especially against a player like Starts. He does limp fold Ace 5, which is just insanely tight once again. I'm not really sure why Jackson's starting to limp now. Like, she's pretty shallow. You can apply pressure still. Like, you can just raise this. Check, check, bet, fold. Ooh, what did she fold there? 10-6? Okay. I think it's really tough to fold a 6 here. Like,
in check on the flop as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's quite high up in your range. I know you're facing full pot, but yeah, I don't know. It's tough to fold a 6. Having the 10 of diamonds maybe kind of sucks a little bit, but I don't think we can fold there. 6-5 opens, takes it down. He just folds Ace 5 in the small blind. Wow. Like, if I was Jackson looking at this hand history, I'd be so tilted that I didn't win this tournament because just the amount of folding that Starts is doing with Jackson to his left, like the fact that he just like open folded an ace in the small blind there, it's crazy. Yeah. Jack 9 suited is going to shove, Ace 8 is going to call, and Jack 9 wins. So now we have heads up. It's going to be interesting to see how these two players play heads up because Jackson, I feel like, has a pretty decent idea of what he's doing from what I can tell. Stats seems like he's the kind of player that I would expect to probably not be super familiar with good heads up strat or to have much experience playing heads up. So I would expect that he's going to do what a lot of people do, which is just overfold a lot. When that's the case, I think there's a lot of reason for Jackson to just take a pure min raise strategy on the button, just like min raise 100%. Normally you would be splitting between limps and min raises, but I think when someone's going to be drastically overfolding to the min raise, you can just do that with everything. He does raise, gets a fold. Limp from stats here with 5-3. King 10. I don't hate the shove here, but it is 30 bigs. And King 10 off is almost like, I don't want to say it's too good to shove, but it's just kind of not necessary to shove for this much. Like if you have a hand that is like an ace with a really bad kicker, like a lot of the time, if you look at heads up sims here, you'll see stuff like ace deuce off, ace 3 off, king 3 off, stuff like that, limp, like just jamming over a limp for 30 bigs. But I don't think it's even necessary with king 10. Like you're dominating a lot of the limping range. You could just raise and sometimes get called by worse. You can also just check and keep a lot of those worse hands in. So I just don't think, especially against a player that we've already seen be way too tight, I think you're going to get almost the same amount of fold equity in relative terms, at least. Like you're going to get the same degree of overfolding by just making it non-all in than you are by shoving, so I don't think you really need to shove there. Nines, it's going to min raise, get a fold from 9-3 off. Queen 9 is going to limp again. 8-4 is going to check. Queen 8-5, check. 2 big blinds, call. Okay, check. I would certainly like to see a 4 of hearts bet this river. Like I think any flush pretty much has to bet on the river here. This is another kind of an example of players not really understanding the scope of how much hand values change when you're heads up. I think any flush is just so good here that you pretty much have to value bet it. So that would probably be a bit of a missed spot from Jackson. King 8 is going to open.
Folding Jack 8's insane. Was it Jack 3 or Jack 8?
I think it was Jack 3. Let's see.
Crazy.
No, it was Jack 3. Yeah, it wasn't Jack 8. So even Jack 3 is like close here, but folding Jack 8 would be insane. Yeah. Ace 10 suited. 9-6. This is one where I think we want to raise here, but we don't want to shove. Like our hand is just too good to just shove. I think we want to make it like 4.5 or something, whatever our ISO size is. 3.25 is a little small, but it's okay. 9-6 just folds. Okay, Jack 8's going to min raise. Yeah, min raise every button seems really good here. He's going to limp. Jack 9 suited. He's going to check. Wow. I don't know how this didn't end the tournament. Like, what the hell? 2 pair versus a flush, and somehow we're not going to play an all-in pot heads up. That's crazy. I think Jack 9 suited can maybe just rip pre, but I think check is good as well. You don't really want to fold out those worst jacks that he might limp. Check, bet. I would expect, this is classic like rec player thing to do, like betting bigger on a monotone board. And when people do this, they just almost always have some kind of value hand because they're trying to protect it against a 4th diamond, So I would just always raise here if I'm Jackson. He does raise, which is good. 8-6 gets it in, and he just makes a full house on the turn. So I guess it would have ended the tournament had he not sucked out, right? So that's kind of, it makes me feel a little bit more like, there is a threshold where he's not going to fold, He didn't manage to find a fold with the 2 pair. A bit unlucky for Jackson for sure, getting it in for a bracelet and just, having him bank one of his 4 outs, but he still has a massive chip lead. We're a bit deeper now, so I think the mistakes that Stats is making in terms of being too tight are going to actually hurt him a little bit more. He does make it, this is interesting, he makes it 3x with ace deuce. You can have a limp strategy with a 3x. You can have like a split here pre. It's not a disaster by any means. I don't love 3-betting to 10 here with this hand because problem is better aces aren't folding. Like this would be okay if it was full ring, but better aces aren't folding now and worse aces aren't really calling. And he does just fold ace deuce. So I would either just rip there or just call. Min raise again. So he does call with 5-4 here. So he does actually speculate a little bit. Check seems okay here with Jack 4. It's a pretty reasonable hand to check back. 5-4 with a spade, like you just have to bluff here. Like how do you not bluff? You just turned a flush draw and an open ender. Check again. Like I think we maybe.
And then you're sitting here with 5 high and you're not getting any folds.
Yeah, you probably should you probably should bet a jack most of the time on the turn, I think there. And then, yeah, just checks 5 high on the river. Like if this is the kind of thing where if you see this on stream, if you see him get to the river with 5 high in a line where it's literally checked down, it's pretty safe to assume that he's like in most spots, he's just basically never going to bluff. Like he's pretty much has no bluffs in almost every spot when you see this, because this is it's such a like a low pressure spot for him to bluff. Like he could just fire out 2 big blinds here. It's really low risk. Like it's not like he even has to risk a big portion of chips in order to bluff here with 5 high. But the fact that he just checks this down, like this is certainly indicating, this is basically communicating like I'm never bluffing. I have 0 bluffs in every spot. The jack value bet's pretty small on the river, which is kind of thin but okay. And he just folds. So limp with the 9-4 suited. Okay, so he does. Yeah, this is barely even a bluff. This is like a super high equity draw. 10-5. So I guess calling with a gut shot plus a diamond is probably okay there. 10 of diamonds turn. Yeah, can't really fold with a 10 plus a diamond, and then he bets 5. Yeah, we get a fold. So yeah, I think that seems fine. I think this is sort of like your classic line from a rec player that just has no bluffs. You know, it's like he bets half pot on the flop, then he bets, what does he bet on the turn? Half pot on the turn, and then he bets 40% on the river, basically. Yeah, this is another one of those like I'm never bluffing here kind of lines, you know. Then we've got 8-4. He does min raise. King queen actually 3-bets small. This is probably fine. I can't really fold it to a shove though. He limps 10-4 here. He's doing a lot of limping with weak hands. I would prefer to see him actually raise some of these sometimes. 10-4, bets turn, gets a fold. King 3. I mean, we're just seeing a lot of like he makes it 3x again now. This is actually not great versus 3x, but it's probably okay. Now he bets big. I think this seems like there's a lot of rec players who sort of do this. It's like if they're going to bluff, they basically just like decide early on, like they raise big and then they bet big on the flop and then they're just like committing to it. But they're not, yeah, they're not just like making decisions as they go along through a hand. Check, bet flop, that seems good. 6 is going to call, check, flush bets, 6 folds. It's so frustrating in Jackson's spot because like you make a good hand and you just can't ever get any value from it. You know what I mean? 10-5 is pretty close pre. Check, bet, fold. 3 deuce is going to raise. Ace 7 raises. 3 deuce folds. Yeah, I mean, certainly I think folding to starts as 3 bets a lot would be very reasonable here. This is definitely way too wide. 7-4 off against 3x. He bets 2 now. And he gets a fold. So he's doing a little bit of c-bet bluffing now. King 4 off, making it 3x. Queens just 3 bets. A lot of 3xing now from both players, actually. Ace queen makes it 10. So we're much deeper. We're like almost 50 deep now. That's, I think, probably why we're seeing the 3x. Wow, he just flops the nuts. Okay. Check. Don't love betting here. Like, you're not getting a lot of better king highs to fold, really. Gets check raised and folds. King 5 suited now min raising. This is a weird 3-bet as well. Like, this is a small size for 50 big steep. Like, I think you should go like 8.5 at least here.
It seems like he's edging with his sizing.
Yeah, it seems like he is. Like, I mean,
he has king queen and he feels comfortable, so he goes 5x. Oh, I have king 7
yeah,
and I'm gonna go
right. And now like he just c-bets 1 big blind. It's funny. I don't hate this against a player like Stutz because it's like against 1 big blind, he's just, if he doesn't have anything that interacts with this board, he's just going to fold. Like he's never going to call with a backdoor or something here. So I kind of don't mind that, even though it's probably not anything that the sim would want to do. Jackson then raises again. Queens 3 bets. I kind of get flatting with 9-8 here, but your equity is not great against the kind of 3-betting range that this guy's going to have. We call, turn 4. I think you have to bluff here. I think there's just so few like 2-pair plus in his range here. Like I think he has like basically no turn check jams. He just has a lot of pocket pairs between like 9s and queens here. And I think and when we have just like a gut shot plus a heart in our hand, I think you can just bet like 11 bigs here on turn and then just shove river a lot of the time here. Jackson checks. He just binks the 6 anyway. So Okay. And he just, yeah, I mean, like, what's he going to call you with? You know, like you're playing against a player.
You probably get him to call off. No, maybe not on a 6 river, but he's definitely calling turn for, 45% pot. And then
Folding river with queens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's kind of the thing. Like I don't even know about folding turn with queens. Like he might just fold. But the thing here is that like, I get that like we just rivered the nuts and we're trying to win a bracelet and we're hoping he has an 8. But the thing is, he just never has an 8. Like the top of his range here is like maybe occasionally he has an ace, but most of the time he's just going to bet an ace on the turn. So I think if we're going to try to get value here, I think I don't think we can go for like a polar strategy because I just don't think he actually bluff catches here. I think we just have to bet like half pot or slightly more than half pot and expect that if he has an 8, he's going to shove anyway. So it doesn't even matter. And if he has some kind of an ace or something like that, then we get a little bit more value like that. When we're bluffing, I would just always jam because I just don't think we get called. So it's kind of a heavy exploit, but you can do that against a player like this that clearly has weaknesses. Jackson opening again. So stacks are going to stay pretty consistent. Check bet fold. And then we're going to have like a hand in a minute where the stacks just flip around. Jackson opens. He flops the nuts again. Checks the turn. Check bet call. Check. Oh, he donks. Okay, he donks the river. This is like a common fish thing too. Like you have the nuts and you're like trying to slow play, but then you get to the river and you really don't want them to check back. So you find a donk bet. And now he raises. Like this is, oh man. Yeah, I guess you can raise a 6 here, possibly. Well, you could raise a 6 if he was playing like somewhere near optimally to where like maybe he donks with 2 pair on the river. But yeah. I just don't know how much this guy's ever actually donking with 2 pair here. And I don't really know if he's actually calling the raise with 2 pair either. So it just seems kind of weird to raise with a 6 because I feel like you just isolate yourself against a jack a lot. And he just called. Like he didn't even shove the river with the jack there. Like, wow.
Oh, it's not quite the stone nuts, I guess.
It's basically like he only loses to exactly king jack and we're playing heads up and he doesn't shove the river. Like this is how tight this guy's playing. It's crazy. This is what happens in like when you're playing for a bracelet. This is what the average rec player is doing a lot of the time. It's kind of wild. And except now he limps the button with 8 deuce off, which is actually a fold here a lot of the time, or at least big blind ante. It's probably not, but it's not a disaster to fold. 10-9, just check calls. I like this raise. I would prefer to have a club here, but this is a pretty reasonable raise, especially if he's going to do weird stuff like betting the turn with a deuce. Don't really understand that. Min raise. So Jackson's approach of just min raising every button, I think is really good. I think that's, very reasonable. He raises with ace 9 suited here. Seems fine. Jack 10, queen 10. Wow, he just flops the wall again. Check 1 big blind or small bet. That's fine. Blush, check. Bets 9 he just overbets here with the 10 high flush. If I see an overbet for this guy from probably the first time the entire final table, I don't know how strong of a hand I would have to actually put money in here, but I think that any like 7 high flush is probably just an easy fold. I don't even know if like a 9 or a 10 high flush is a call here. I certainly wouldn't jam without the ace. Like I wouldn't jam the queen here. It's kind of crazy. Okay, so he actually now makes it 3.5 with king 5 off on the button, which is a little odd, but okay. Jack 10 seems fine. And now we get a big changeover of stacks. So he has 10s, makes it 3.5. It's kind of wild. And then king queen 3 bets. Like against the big open, there's really very little reason to 3 bet king queen off here. Like
there's no.
Yeah. I mean, against that big open, like he did it with king 5 off, but either way, the bottom line about it is that the open is polar, right? It's one way or the other. Even if you don't think it's necessarily value heavy, it's definitely polar, which means that it's not going to be queen jack suited, right? It's not going to be a hand that's like opening and then it's going to flat the 3 bet with worse than king queen. So I don't like this. 10s gets it in and then king queen calls it off. Like it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild 3 bet calling against a guy that has shown no pre-flop aggression like the entire final table. So
Probably the bottom of this. Probably bottom of this 4-bet rip range.
it might be like it
it.
honestly might be. It truly might be. So now stacks flip around, and now we get this hand, which is I think going to just be the final hand of the tournament, where it's like Jackson flops top pair, small bet, seems fine. Check raise again, like first check raise of the entire final table from this guy. I would already be like, okay, I can't fold right now, but I'm very wary of this guy having a 7. And then we call, turn 10. So 8-9 just got there. So I'm running for the hills, right? Like he bet again on the turn. He'd just be like he has a 7 here. He has 8-9. He has like every 7 in the deck at this point, basically. Like I would not call with a jack here. And then especially just calling down here. This is just like a crazy punt, like it's, in theory, it's not supposed to be, but in terms of the EV here against this particular player, I think this line where it goes check raise, bet turn on this specific turn, shove river. I just don't think that's ever a bluff from this player. Like he literally did not bluff the entire final table until heads up. There's not one single bluff that he made really, other than a couple of hands where he shoved with a short stack where he didn't actually have like a super strong hand. But you to call down with a bluff catcher, having seen a guy play an entire final table and not bluff one time, it's a great example of how even players that think they're like an exploitative type player, or they're not like in the GTO sort of school of things, which Jackson, I know he's a reg, and I know, I don't think he's known for being like a super theory orientated player or anything like that. Even players who probably who would consider themselves to be exploitative players, under pressure like this, you can still end up making so many errors. You know what I mean? Like you can still end up doing stuff that you look back on it and you're like, why would you have a bluff catch here, against this player who's been like crazy tight the entire time? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, interesting final table, I think. Does that all make sense? Anything kind of unclear about those hands?
No, it seems like, I think when you're replaying a final table, it's really easy to see where people are making mistakes and see where you should be adjusting. I think the key is just being able to do it in game, and that just comes heaps of reps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, stuff like this, just reviewing final tables, even of tournaments that are not, super high stakes or whatever, like it's funny how it's so frequent that I'll hear people being like, well, I study like GTO stuff, but then like that doesn't really apply to my games. And it's like, okay, you have the opportunity to review a final table of exactly the type of games that you play in. Yep. Are you doing that? And they'll be like, no, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like if you're
this sort of study can be super fun if you're just sitting here with a mate.
Yeah, like, precisely. I think you basically you have to, like, if you're not going to commit to the studying the theory and GTO and stuff, that's totally reasonable. But if you're going to do that, you have to actually study how people actually play, which means that when the information is out there in terms of like streaming final tables, in terms of like stuff on PokerGo, stuff in Octopi, even stuff that gets put out on YouTube. Like if you look at some of like the Texas card rooms, they'll stream like their weekly $200 final table and shit like that. Like you can find final tables of super low stakes tournaments out there. Study that stuff. You know what I mean? Like a
lot of the I've got a tournament series coming up in the next 2 I'm excited for, and they always have like a very low quality stream on their Facebook.
Yeah.
Even just watching that, because they've got an RFID table.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just being able to see all the hand histories from that.
Absolutely.
Again,
I mean, the information out there, the information about how people actually play is absolutely out there. Like even just having PokerGo, like if you just have PokerGo, there's so much you can glean from watching how people actually play. And if you're not going to be in one camp, you have to be in the other. You know what I mean? Like if you're not going to watch how people actually play, then you should study theory. If you're not going to study theory, you should study how people actually play. But if you don't do either of them, you're not really going to have any kind of baseline to rely on. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's it's a great tool, being able to look through stuff like this with whole cards and everything. So something that certainly can serve pretty well to give a good perspective on how people are playing and see some of the mistakes and stuff like that in real time. So yeah, I think that's a good spot to wrap it. So that wraps up our two-part look at this WSOP $1,500 final table. Hopefully you picked up a lot about how to approach these high leverage ICM spots and how to recognize when other players are deviating from optimal play. If you enjoyed this series, hit the like button and let me know in the comments what kind of final table reviews you'd like me to cover next. And don't forget, I'm currently offering some discounted coaching packages, so if you want me to help you analyze your own hands or prepare for a deep run in a WSOP event like this one, send me an email at pokerfluency@gmail.com and I'll get you all the details. Finally, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss the next breakdown. Hit the bell icon so you can get notified when new videos are coming out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.